are there here? Well, people tend to narrow their views down when they think of the spiritual realm, and it's really quite vast out there when you throw this all in together. And there you are. You've left this life. Are you going to the? There's the in the Book of Revelation. Let's look at what's called New Jerusalem, which some prefer to call it Space City, because the ultimate in this is that it comes down from heaven. It comes from God, and then comes to a new earth. So it reminds you of a space city that travels across the universe, travels across the sky, travels out of another dimension and finds itself placed on this earth, a new heaven and new earth, and so you have New Jerusalem. Well, people view even New Jerusalem as being like a pyramid in shape. So again you have a form of principalities here, in that in Egypt they had pyramids. In secret societies, they have their perception of reality and levels of different initiated ones that would take in all of these various secret societies and what have you. And so they have their hierarchy, let's say, with the capstone, with the eye in it being Lucifer, and under that you'd have various levels of command, let's say, the structure of that society. Secret societies all around the world. So kind of a society in every society on earth within every society, and a lot of these, of course, pulling the strings. Well, of course, again, all of this extends into the spiritual dimension. So you've left this world, and let's have no narrow-minded illusions here. Where will you go? What will your level be? It's not simply a case of heaven and hell. You have to have the view of heaven and hell and in between. Well, when you look further into the scriptures, there's in fact two resurrections. Do people even think of the resurrection? My point is, you've left this world and coming back to the body. You've left your vehicle on earth, and your vehicle on earth is just going to be left to your relatives to deal with. Maybe when you were on earth, you made provision for your body. You wanted it buried. You wanted it burned. Usually it's one of these two. Maybe you want to be buried at sea. You hear about some people who are actually buried in outer space. Their ashes are thrown off into outer space. I've read of the LSD, the man who largely brought LSD, Timothy Leary. he had his cremation on Earth, no doubt, and they took his ashes into outer space. I heard, whether it's true or not, and scattered his ashes amongst the stars. Well, how empty and horrible that would be. The worst fear of dying and death is that you go into some awful bottomless pit or outer space-like place without a guide to guide you and to take you to your designated destination. Even at the second coming of Jesus, he sends forth his angels to the four quarters of the earth, to the four winds. And when we're going into angels and the resurrection, you think, well, how many angels? It doesn't say. But you think, if you're saying that when the resurrection of Jesus comes, and the second coming this is, he's going to send forth his angels to the four quarters of the earth, to the four winds, to gather together his elect. Now, the elect, those are, ye have not chosen me, but I've chosen you, Jesus said. So in other words, those that are chosen by Jesus, and anyone who enters in through the door into the world of the Spirit. Well, on earth, you can enter into the world of the Spirit, though you're still in your body, but you are now, let's say you've received Jesus Christ into your heart. You've had a definite calling from Jesus. You didn't just listen to some preacher who was preaching from the flesh, or some false prophet that made up a vision and was speaking from his flesh, which created a barrier between you and God. But God willing, you listened to someone who was speaking from the Spirit of God, who indeed had Jesus in their heart, who was indeed aware of that spiritual reality, that spiritual dimension, in that he'd received Jesus into his heart, or her heart even. In my case, it was her heart who actually originally spoke to me from the Spirit, no doubt to the Spirit, and speaking to my heart and my mind, and therefore I receiving Jesus Christ into my heart, the real thing, the real deal, in receiving Jesus Christ. Well, where was I now? I've suddenly lost my train of thought, and largely what I had in mind there to speak. This is all coming from free flow, God willing. Thoughts can come into your head, and you can speak words of life as opposed to words of death. And that's what I'm trying to do here, speak words of life that come from life as opposed to words of death that come from death. We're talking largely about the resurrection now, as I record in my bungled up human mind, which is full of so many impulses. Sometimes the thoughts and thinking crosses, and I can say the most ridiculous things. God willing, I won't. You can't always recall to memory what he was meaning to say, but as I recall, I was talking about the various even aspects of the resurrection. Well, of course, when Jesus comes back, you'll have the resurrection of the saints. The dead in Christ shall rise first, it says, right? We shall be changed. Now, you're alive on earth. Jesus suddenly appears in the clouds of heaven. Behold, it says, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him. That's every eye on earth shall see him. And they also which pierced him. So in other words, the ones that were responsible for his death, which was his own people of the time, being the Jews. And they also which pierced him, and all the kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. So there's going to be a lot of crying, and they won't be crying maybe they're crying in shame, but crying with a heart and a will to change, but crying in that they know deep down of all the things people have done wrong. And so, behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds, we got 7 billion people now on earth, all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. And all the great men, the rich man, the bondman, the free man, the chief captain shall run into the clefts and rocks of the mountains, saying to the rocks and mountains, fall on us. So looking at that symbolically, running into these various kingdoms on earth symbolizes as mountains, many running into their high rises, many running into their rich mansions, many running into their den dives, and whatever people's dwelling places are, looking at this symbolically, running into the clefts and rocks of the mountains, and saying to the rocks and mountains, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth upon the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Now, this crossing all sections of society, in that even the saints are going to wonder who can stand.